Welcome to Immigration Uncovered, the docket-wise video podcast where we dive deep into the dynamic world of immigration law, shedding light on the latest developments, cutting-edge practice management strategies, and the transformative impact of legal technology. I'm thrilled to be your host on this exciting journey as we empower immigration practitioners with insights and explore the intricate intersection of law and society. I have as my special guest today, Ian Almasi, CEO and founder of Immigration Finder. Ian, welcome. Thanks for joining me. You want to tell us a little bit about your background and your journey and what inspired you to establish Immigration Finder?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me here, James. I guess what inspired me to start Immigration Finder is I met an immigration lawyer at a meditation retreat, and I just started working with him, and it all kind of came from there. But I guess once I started actually working with an immigration firm, I realized that there was kind of, as far as building the business goes, there are more opportunities within a lot of immigration firms than there were outside in terms of like clientele and that. And then I developed a background in a number of things.
But where were you coming from as a professional? I mean, what was your original background? Was it in tech or?
Well, for a while I worked in the fishing and tree cutting industry. Then I actually started an online business wanting to help local businesses with their ads. And that was kind of the thing. And then, I used to work with real estate agents. That's kind of where I learned about call centers and operations and other things. And real estate and immigration law are related in a lot of senses, but in the sense of the screenings, a lot of it is because you need to gather specific information. People need to qualify for things. There's generally a high volume of inquiries to a somewhat low number of like newly retained clients sometimes. Then when I met an immigration lawyer, there were all these things that were common in the immigration service industry as far as call centers, screening leads, those kinds of things that crossed over really well to immigration because it wasn't very common to have. At the time in 2019 or 2018, 2019, it wasn't as common to have remote workers calling and doing things, whereas since the pandemic, it's become a bit more popular. So that's kind of where it all started. But overall, it's just kind of an existing skill set that meshed well with a client I happened to meet at an event that was not related to immigration or business at all. I just went there for fun, and they're actually still a client almost 5 years later, which is amazing. We've been able to have an impact on the industry.
I always find it fascinating to talk to people who have come from other backgrounds who didn't, originally seek to get into immigration and for some reason have found themselves operating in this space. That's always interesting to me because a lot of us, who are in immigration, we had a sort of a deep and abiding connection to immigration or something. So it's very interesting to dialogue with people who are coming in and found this as a space that they could work in. That's amazing. And so, Ian, your company, Immigration Finder, has been successful in helping clients solve challenges such as having their skilled staff trained and retrained. I mean, can you elaborate or explain how your automation tools, contribute to this outcome, and what benefits does Immigration Finder bring to law firms?
Well, one of the biggest benefits we bring is really just we want to actually build a law firm that someone wants to own, and so. That's kind of the thing, though, is like my mom actually owned a business called the Self-Care Passport, where she literally would just teach business owners how to just delegate their time so they can take care of themselves. And that's obviously something missing from the legal industry, too, in some ways. But I guess a lot of what we actually help people with is we're going to look at your business and see how does everything actually work together. Because, of course, when you talk to the rep at a software company, when you talk to the payroll company you work with, when you hire somebody, how do we get this to all work synergistically? Because how you scan the documents in your office should work congruently with how your remote workers are filing things if you have them in a country, in another country or in the US, or let's say you're using DocketWise, for example. How does that actually fit into you printing stuff out in the office and then mailing it? And so that's kind of the thing is how do we build congruency? But the actual kind of value of that is we go into a business, we see where their time's going and where a lot of the stress and tension is maybe in the business. Then we focus on those key areas so we can relieve the team so that way you can build the business from more of a place of abundance where it's not like, why don't we get more work and then tack more work on and then make more money? It's like, why don't we just build everything as effectively as possible, save, whatever that percentage of time, let's say it's 20%. Then we can use that to pursue more of the opportunities that are already out there, or you can use that extra time to do whatever you want. I mean, one firm hired us and their goal was, the founder, she wanted to go pick up her kids at 2 p.m. instead of her husband doing it. And that was her motivation. And then we have other lawyers that come to us that want to, make a certain amount of money, or they want to retire in the next few years and they don't know how they're going to do that, free themselves from the business, or bring on a partner. So that's kind of the goal. So I guess the main value we're doing is really kind of giving people's time back in the legal industry, immigration in specific. And we focus a lot heavily on the employee side of the work as well, because obviously it needs to kind of be a two-way street between the owners and the employees of a business. So what we want to do is make the work lives easier of anyone working there, owners and employees, so the business can grow. And that way you can also retain staff and have happy people, ideally, as you're putting in the miles.
Having a very organized system of operations is certainly crucial for any successful business. So in the specific context of immigration practice, you've given a few of examples. Can you give any more examples of how the solutions really enhance the organizational efficiency specific to immigration?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, one place to get to start might be to explain our four-step process to you. So whenever we work with a business, the first step of working with them is to always to quantify a specific issue. Because what you don't want to do when you start a project is start a million different projects. Like if you want to structure the business, focus on automating a specific or structuring a specific part of it. Like, hey, I really want to get the intake process of my firm systematized. I want to be able to onboard clients really effectively because it's causing a lot of stress. Or I really just want to get the cases filed effectively. Like I do the review and stuff just sits around the office and it doesn't get mailed out as quickly as it could. So focus on that. But that's kind of the first step, is quantify. The next step is automate, which is the actual building of the procedure. And so let's say the first step, quantify, you're going to realize, hey, I want to sign up more of the existing prospects that I have. We have a lot of inquiries. We don't know what to do with all of them. That's, they're not signing up. All right, so let's work on that. So maybe we realize during the automate phase, okay, well, maybe we need to streamline the actual contract onboarding process for the firm. And then instead of, someone just being kind of left out to, hey, when you're interested, just come back and say yes. Maybe we'll work on actually sending them, an agreement that'll follow up with them automatically to remind them about the service. Then third step, we call it market. We don't really do paid marketing anymore, but that's still what it's called. But that's the part where we're going after the desired result. So let's say we want to sign up more of our existing prospects. We built a system for it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually use that system to sign up more of the existing prospects. Then the fourth step's optimize, is because we've created this system and then documented it. Everything we build comes with like a playbook and a manual and build, guides and, Google Documents and video and other tools. We can then recycle through that. So first step, kind of quantify, realize, hey, we want to sign up more of our existing prospects. Next step, automate. All right, let's introduce, some type of e-signature payment collection. Let's just really simplify the process for the end user. Third steps, all right, well, let's start using the system. Let's start sending these agreements out or whatever the system is. Let's get this in there. Let's do that. Let's follow up with people. Then fourth step, let's optimize. All right, well, maybe now that we have, we're getting more of these people signed up, maybe we want to streamline how we onboard the clients, or maybe we need a paralegal, or maybe we want to hire an intake person to pre-screen the consults with a questionnaire on the phone, and then the attorney can do the consults. So that way there's, cut down the consult time and maybe do more of them, or just, cut down the consult time. That's a reward too. And so that's kind of the whole process of a lot of it. But the idea is really just in that is we can consistently grow the business without having a million projects, because that gets taken care of. We move to the next thing, that grows a little bit. That gets taken care of. We move to the next thing, that grows a little bit. So that way we're not starting an infinite project, but then also we're repeatedly adding value through a structured system.
Excellent. As an overall schematic, let's drill down a little bit into sort of the call and answering services aspect of it, because certainly with immigration firms and other types of law firms where you're serving, sort of the general public, managing a large volume of inquiries always becomes a challenge, and automating your call and answering service can certainly be a game changer. So how does Immigration Finder address this aspect and ensure that law firms can provide a seamless and hopefully automated communication experience for their clients?
The place to start with that is obviously a little bit of the who's actually answering the phone, and not just who specifically, who in your company is being tasked with this, and is that task congruent with other responsibilities they have? Is if the person answering the phone is also responsible for a million different things, how much focus is really going to get put on answering the phone if they have all these other responsibilities? And not to say you can't do it like that and delegate out to people, but generally a really good place to start. And then I used to own an immigration sales team, like a remote call center that people would outsource to us to help us to help them sign up immigration cases. And then a lot of what we learned is it's good to get people that are very focused on the work, but then also you want to establish what baseline competency is and have some type of service level expectation. Like, hey, we call people back in a certain amount of time. We answer the phone a certain way each time. This is our parameters for explaining things to people, because obviously you don't want to give legal advice. But if someone calls you up and asks a question, like, what do you actually say to them? If you're obviously not going to give them the legal advice side of it, but you need to say something. So having expectations is very helpful. The other side of that is it's really important that as you bring these people on and train them, or if you want to retrain existing staff, that it doesn't just become, a pile of work thrown at them is the thing, is you want to go kind of structure it. Like, hey, first, we're just going to teach you how to, sign up, consultations and then take notes in the CRM. Then that's going to be the first 2 weeks of training. Then after that, what we're going to work on is maybe doing a bit more of the screening. So when someone calls in, they said, hey, I want to get a marriage green card, what do you ask? And how do you ask? And, is there some type of rubric for that? But a lot of the things, if you want to improve and make the communication seamless, is set an expectation that your staff has to maintain, and then set an expectation with the client too. So that's and have it in writing, when the case starts, and that way the whole company should operate congruently. It's kind of the thing. Like if a client calls in and says, hey, we're happy to do this, we'll get back to you in the next 24 hours. That way everything is always consistent and clear. And then in regards to having the phones covered and everything, if we have a 24/7 answering service that works with immigration lawyers, it's have a way for people to communicate with you that is answered quickly. Even if you're not going to get back to them quickly, just have some type of proof that you're receptive to when they communicate. And then you'll end up doing less work if you proactively communicate with people. So if you're the one calling them, it might seem like more work, but you will prevent issues further on down the line. Like if, once a month, just send out an email to me, hey, your case is still pending. We care, but there's nothing we can do about it. That's better than waiting until people are afraid or they hear about their friend that had a bad experience with the lawyer. It's, all of a sudden calling the office, wondering if they hired the right people.
Let's talk about the intake process. I mean, in immigration firms, streamlining the intake process, especially using software, is a significant achievement. How do immigration finder solutions simplify the client intake process and lead to more efficiency there?
Well, one of the big ways we do this, there's the intake process, but just like anything, there's steps to a process. So you can reduce customer service issues considerably by just having a solid onboarding process. But when you're structuring this out, clearly define which part of the process people are responsible for. And even if it's one person managing all of it, like you're a solo attorney, just think, hey, there's the inquiry stage, which is people just contacting the firm somehow. There's the filtration stage, which is them pretty much filtering those down to whoever is somewhat viable. And they have to like respond to emails, answer their phone. They have to potentially qualify for something. And then they have to have some degree of intent, as in they're willing to do a consult, communicate with you or do something. And then there's the sales step, which is kind of consulting. And then that's where they actually find out, hey, do you qualify for something? And are we going to ask you to work with us? And then the next thing is onboarding the client. So after someone signs up, how do we bridge the gap between, them being a prospect and all this back and forth, kind of getting to know you communication to actual legal production, where you can actually provide the service that people are paying for. So those are the stages in there, but then also how to get that actually started. Define what happens at each of those stages. What's the inquiry stage, the filtration stage, the sales kind of consulting stage, and then the onboarding. So that as the team grows and you hire someone, you're not just hiring people thinking, oh, I need more help with this. Like, oh, I need more people to screen these leads because I'm loaded on consults and I want to reduce the amount of time it takes because I want more information going into this. So that's the thing, is to get a little intentional on it. Then that kind of feeds into the next part of the legal production process, is you can set expectations in the sales and intake process for the legal production. For like, hey, once you're assigned client, this is how it's going to be, and so on and so forth. Because I think the big things people are concerned about is, as the business grows, will we maintain what we actually did to get to this point? Like, is it going to be clear? All that different stuff.
So scalability becomes,
Yeah.
is it we're in consideration? You always need it to be scalable. And I like what you said about, the onboarding process sets the tone for the entire representation of the client and the production of the legal work. So if you If you onboard the client and orient them toward how you expect them to interact with the firm, then you're going to have much smoother time when you get to the production stage. In immigration law, production of legal work product, I mean, repetitive data entry and administrative work is time consuming and tedious. How do the automations that you employ at Immigration Finder approach helping legal professionals reduce some of the manual tasks and focus on these higher value activities?
That is a great question because we have done time tracking before and realized that 2 hours of people's day is literally just that packing in information. And that's, and I don't want to act like that's going to just disappear if you automate your firm. So one of the big things is to realize, do you have all the information that's getting entered into data or in data entry, or could it have been collected at some point? So the process we just talked about with, that intake phase, the people in that are managing that, or the person managing that, or whatever system is data being gathered there actually usable in a legal production stage? Or are people just kind of taking botched notes on a piece of paper and then kind of managing it themselves? So the big thing about reducing data entry is look a few steps earlier to kind of see when it can be collected. Then is there a place or a way to where that can just be transported? I mean, a quick example of that, James, is one client we worked with. They had a very manual intake and consultation process that we helped them restructure. And over the course of 6 months, 8 months or so, we moved them from having a paper intake form into using a paper form that the attorney filled out while he was on consults and handing it to a team member, to using that DocuWise Lead CRM. Then when they onboarded the client, it was the click of a button. All the information they had from paragraphs of information from this very thorough screening would then onboard the client. There was no data entry into the system at all. So that could be more seamless. Not everyone's going to restructure their systems like that, though. So the big thing you can do to reduce some data entry is look for ways that software can work together. There are a lot of tools like Make.com, Zapier. There are questionnaires you can get your client to fill out. Or there are ways to where, if you're doing multiple data entry, you might be able to automate it to where you fill out a form and then that form populates 4 different softwares on the internet. So you only have to do it once. Like, in our own business, we used to onboard clients. We'd make their online folder. We'd make all this stuff. And it was about like an hour or two of just setup. But then we moved to having a form that created something in our project management system, something in Google Drive. It created a document for the meeting notes. We always log the meetings in one place. And so it's not just specific to immigration law, but there's a lot of ways to just condense steps with one singular entry. And that's a good thing to do. But I guess to summarize is if you can actually collect all the information possible in the intake process and use it. A big complaint from paralegals is they start a case and then they have no information to go with. And then you have someone that's been talking to the firm for 3 months. And they're like, well, what about this information? I did a consult. I talked to the screening people 3 times. I received an agreement. I went to the office and met in person. Like, I sent my CV over. Like, where's all this information? Because that in and of itself can cause some customer service issues. It's like, well, what have you been doing for 3 months? Like, we just went through this whole console and I just sold some real estate to afford the C2 visa. Like, were you not taking notes?
I mean, let's just talk about sort of how you analyze building the tech stack. I mean, that is your core functions, right? So what's your sort of philosophy of building the tech stack? Sometimes less is more. There's various philosophies, but how would you approach it?
Well, the first approach is to see what people are already doing as far as like what software they already have, what's the process. But we're always going to focus on the underlying workflow that exists. And then how do we get a software to match that? So like my dad's like a custom builder. And one thing that comes up when you're building a house is something called a needs and wants list. So for example, like write down what you need a software to do. Like maybe you need a software that can do trust accounting for you. And if you don't need that, don't look for it. So maybe you need a software that, has the ability to, organize PDFs in a certain format for that kind of thing. Like maybe you have a litigation side of the business or another practice area. So focus on the underlying workflow the firm works and then shop and then look for things around that functionality. So for example, one firm we worked with, they do a lot of like mandamus cases. They do a ton of mandamus litigation. They probably file over 50 a month. I don't know the exact number anymore, but it's quite a few of them, came up. So they needed a lot of software that could, very much make, repeated lawsuits in addition to like a lot of the immigration work they were doing with filing USCIS applications. So what we looked for was like a solution. Then they ended up using a tool called Airtable for it, and in addition to some other tools. But that was kind of the thing, though, is they wanted to have a system for that. So focus on the underlying workflow that your firm has, and then shop around that. So instead of just looking out for, how do I find the perfect tool that's going to work? Focus on like this is what my business does and actually needs, and then shop around that component. But if you think about it, like getting a gym membership. Let's say there's two people out there, and one person, they work out at home, they run every day, they drink enough water, they track all their eating and that person getting a gym membership is going to have a much higher chance of success than someone who doesn't do any of those things, who thinks that going and getting a gym membership is like what's going to get them in shape. Yeah. Well, and both could work. It doesn't mean like, just because you're not going to the gym doesn't mean you can't get a gym membership and be successful, but the underlying habits are what's really important. Then in all reality, tools change, software changes, all that stuff. Focus on how the firm works. But the thing about picking a tech stack is there's not one thing that's gonna fix everything for you. Even if you have a perfect software, you're still gonna need to print stuff out and package it, nail it out. That part's not gonna change. You're still gonna have to have someone sitting at your front desk to greet people if that's how your business works. So it's you need to focus on how it all works together, but get your workflow written out of like, hey, this is how we want to onboard clients and in which time frame, or this is how we want to file our E2 cases, and this is the time frame we want to follow, and this is like how soon we want to get it out the door, and then go shop based on that. And then that's a lot of how we do it. Is when we start working with a firm, it's always review their existing things, address their existing workflows and how the company already works. And that gives us a chance to see where the discrepancy is between what's digital and what's not, because not everything ends up inside software, which can be difficult when you have a remote team. But some people have, they have paper case files or they have a whiteboard they have stuff on. But overall, to kind of summarize, we assess what they actually have, we build their existing workflow, and then we help them kind of shop or help them restructure their software based on that. So we can facilitate more of the stuff that needs to happen. Because your software is always going to be one component of a larger field in your business.
Absolutely. How important are integrations in your thinking? I mean, is the fact that products integrate together, is that now, a key aspect of it? Or again, is it just really sort of on a case by case basis and you see what the workflow is like? And if you can find integrated products that are, synergistic, it's good, but it's not a key thing you set out to have seamless integration?
I always set out and look for integrations, partly because the software companies that have integrations are generally the ones that are going to update their software regularly, and they're going to look to make improvements. The ones that don't tend to be a bit more static. So aside from just the integration itself, the companies that are looking for ways to integrate and improve their products are generally better companies to work with because they're looking for ways to integrate. So that's another thing to think about. Is like, but like DocWise has way more integrations now than they did when I started using it 3-4 years ago. And that makes a big difference that people can integrate their QuickBooks and integrate my case, and they don't have to jump ship to use this different tool. It could fit into existing stuff.
Personally, I consider it a major.
Oh, it's super important. Yeah,
it's super important, and that's the entire trend of everything is becoming more integrated.
Well, I guess one of the main things to look at is when people are kind of thinking about integrations and that, not everybody wants to abandon their existing tech stacks. And that can be difficult to do. You have something customized that you've used for a while and you're just kind of used to it, has a lot of your data. But in regards to actually kind of integrating something and looking for those things, there are a lot of third-party tools, like Zapier is one of them. And if you go to zapier.com/apps, you can actually look to see how DocketWise can integrate with other tools that aren't listed on the integration site. And so there's a lot of different ways to like look up how things will work together. But this kind of goes back to like in the workflow planning we were talking about. We could look at their existing workflow and then look for the things that they may not even know is an option or is potentially available.
Well, let's talk a little bit about getting clients, which is a key aspect of practice. So worrying about where the next client will come from is a paramount concern for many lawyers. So how does Immigration Finder's approach to automation and streamlining assist your client firms with attracting and retaining clients?
Immigration is not always an immediate need. So we're a big proponent of long-term follow-up. So there's kind of two things. There's getting new clients and there's getting returning clients, and both of which, you need to focus on. because all of your clients that got married that need removal of conditions in 2 years, those are a great prospect base, but do you have a plan to follow up with them? And a lot of tools have a task platform where you can actually mark a follow-up form, or you can schedule an email that literally goes out a year and a half later. And so you're on top of those things. So as far as it goes, definitely you want to farm within your existing client base. So and that can involve asking for referrals, checking with people to see if they need renewals. Those are two big things. And then if you're consistent with this, you can get to the point where 10 to 30% of your business are just these returning clients that you're just calling up, and then they're kind of lay downs. So that's the next thing. And then the next thing you need to ask yourself is, do I have enough inquiries to actually build the business to the level that I want? And that happens a lot where firms come to us like, hey, we want to get clients. And they actually have enough inquiries to do that. They're getting thousands of inquiries from social media. It's not manageable. And a lot of the inquiries they're getting, the easy ones are signing up, but the people that need a bit more convincing, or maybe they're a few months out, are there. So have a system for screening people that aren't ready yet, and a way to keep in touch with them. It's very easy. Like we hire a lot of people from Latin America just to do those calls. For people that just got engaged that want to get married a year later, and that sounds like a lot of work. Oh, I got to call them in a year. But when it gets to the point where you're making calls like this every single day, and you're signing clients on a regular basis from people that are a year ago, it can get to the point to where, that's very helpful. I mean, actually about half of Immigration Finders clientele are people I met a year ago plus that decide to start working with us. So it works in any business. As far as getting new clients goes, like let's say you don't have as many of those inquiries. A few things to do is, obviously there's a lot of free stuff on social media, those things. If you're not quite as into making content, there are a lot of people that can make the content for you and then post something a bit more generic. There are tools like Doodly that can make video content, just kind of cartoon animated. And those are very visually engaging. That's a very good way to describe things because it's visually engaging. Like we made a 7 ways to speed up your immigration case video for one of our clients. And it was one of them is, contact, your congressman. The next one was, call USCIS. And there was a few other things in there. And those are a normal approach, so there's still options for people. So as far as getting the new clients goes, is one, have a system for signing them up and screening them, because not everyone's going to be ready immediately. Generally about 2% of prospects are ready to buy immediately. And then secondly is have a system for the people that aren't ready immediately, which just kind of goes back to the first thing, but actually use a system for it. You have some type of task platform for it. And then third thing is, ask for referrals, but also, reach out to people that need to renew their cases. If you've been a lawyer for more than a few years and you've been in business, you definitely have filed cases that need to be renewed, that need their condition removed, people that are eligible for citizenship. That's, let's say you filed an F1 visa 2 years ago, email them, ask, hey, have you got a job offer at all? Do you have plans to stay in the US? Do you have this? That is a much warmer prospect. And then also, like an F1 student that's in school is probably around a lot of other international students. Maybe it's not them. Maybe they want to do it. So farm within your existing base, but then also, if you need to get new inquiries, go to the easiest places to get those, which is generally online social media. Immigration is very search heavy. And so that's something that is a good thing about this industry, is because there are people that are looking up answers to questions actively on a daily basis. It's, there are YouTube channels out there that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers in the immigration industry, which is a fairly small industry in the big scheme of things. And so that's a big thing on there. And then the next thing is there is the option to do paid ads as well to get clients, but we mostly focus on the intake and onboarding process, just because when that's in place, generally every type of marketing will produce some type of fruitful result, or you'll actually know if it was worth it if you have a structured intake process. You'll be able to say, this didn't work because this intake process that we have worked with getting clients from social media, worked with getting clients from buying leads from this company, but this specific marketing campaign didn't work. So that way you're not gauging it based on, did I get clients? It's like, did my process produce what it needed to?
So let me just, so you're not actually hands-on involved in the digital marketing aspect, but do you assist the clients with finding digital marketing professionals if they should ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only part of the marketing process we don't do is paid ads, but everything else we'll set up. So a lot of what my company does is we monetize existing marketing. And we help people get more leads from their existing marketing. So like a client that just recently signed up with us, they have about 100,000 viewers on the YouTube channel, and it's which is awesome, but it's they're not using that YouTube channel as a conduit to their business. And then one thing we do quite a bit of is we write marketing plans out. So we'll write out, this is how much you need to spend on this ad. This is how this campaign needs to work. We do build a lot of funnels and landing pages, which are like these mini websites to screen things. Because a lot of the people that come to us, they're getting leads, but they want to get specific leads. Like they want to do a specific case type, or they want to advertise to, even if it's not a specific case type, we want to work with professionals. Like, the family immigration side is totally thriving. It's good, but we want to get more business immigration cases, or we want to, get more mandamus cases or whatever it is. So kind of fine tuning that is a lot of what we work on. So one thing we do with marketing is we plan, we monetize existing content, then we build up the automation and sales procedures to actually turn those leads into paying clients. And when you come from kind of more of like a cold calling call center background, that's you kind of have a different perspective on like how to actually, follow up with people in that, which is something I really, really like to bring to the table.
That's one of the things I always loved about the immigration field was that there is so much repeat business that you can get. I mean, and that really, certainly you should obviously still have to do marketing, but really so much of your business. I mean, what percentage, what was it? Did you quote a percentage? What percentage of do you strive for in terms of seeing a client's business come from repeat business from their existing client base or referrals from their existing client base?
Generally, like if you can get 10 to 30% of your top line revenue in the business being repeat clients, as in like, E2 renewals, removal of conditions, naturalization, or some type of succession of service is a good mark. That's obviously going to take a while because, if you're just starting a firm, I'm just going to file a case and 2 weeks later they'll come back. And if they do, it's not, it's not always for the next service, so that's kind of part of it. But generally we want to get to that point where 10 to 30% are there. Quick ways to actually get it there is email market regularly. You could host webinars or lives online, have a Facebook group, or some way for people to just be exposed to on a regular basis. As not everyone that researches immigration is someone that actively needs a lawyer. So that's one thing. Then a percentage coming from referrals. That's obviously going to vary by firm. And then also it's going to vary by their client base, the types of cases, those kinds of things. But generally, with a lot of that data, start tracking it. A lot of CRMs, like you can put in a lead source and it'll tell you automatically, as long as it's tracked, like what percentage it comes from. And it can vary over time too. Obviously referrals can go in phases, those things can. And then it's good to track the types of referrals you're getting. And was this a referral from another lawyer? Was it a referral from like another business? Like let's say there's like an accountant in your local area that works with a lot of local businesses, and then they refer clients to you that want to sponsor people for, like visas because they need employees. That's a different referral than a client referral, for example. So it's look at those differently. But part of getting more referrals is nurturing the relationships. Like when a client refers someone to you, do you call them and thank them, or do you make some type of effort to thank them? And then, well, like one firm I spoke to, they said, "Oh, we get a lot of work from referrals, but they're not really actually referrals. I advertise on TV, and my clients kind of say that, oh, hey, that's my lawyer,' and then they end up contacting me like that. So that's a little bit different than someone, putting you in a CC'd email with someone they need help with.
I mean, what are some of the things that you could do, in terms of communicating with your existing client base to kind of prompt them to send you more referrals?
They just have to remember that you exist. Not everyone is walking around thinking about their lawyer all the time. Ideally, they're not, because they, if they're not thinking about the lawyer, that means you generally did a good job. So they're not stressed out about it. Yeah. But good things to do are definitely email marketing. You can stay on top of them, have a monthly newsletter. If you're recording content online, send it out, those kinds of things. Having like a direct mail card periodically is one thing. When people do get a case resolved, or like let's say someone, like you close a case, like they're done being your client for the time being, send them a card, say thank you on there. That's, and then one of the other things you can do is, we do this quite a bit, is, we used to do it a few years ago. We do something called a verbal newsletter with a lot of firms. Is anytime there's some type of breaking immigration news that's interesting, you can have someone from your firm just call all of your past clients in your database and then just very quickly say, hey, did you know there's an update with this immigration thing? And then there generally are a lot of immigration updates that affect a lot of people. So we did one of these once with the with DACA, where we just started calling out and saying, "Hey, if you know any DACA, recipients, like when DACA blew up at the end of 2020, I think it was a good way to do it. But it was a great way to start new conversations with people, and it was very light because you weren't asking for anything; you're just sharing this. The main way we do it is email marketing, of course, because it just keeps top of mind. And then the other thing is like the verbal newsletter, recording lives. And then I guess the other thing is, though, is when your current clients contact you or when you get referrals and they contact you, do you reach out and thank the person who referred them? And then many tools, CleoGrow, for example, actually has a platform where you can track who referred who, and it's built into the system. So it's not difficult to do by any means. But I guess the way to get more referrals is to be grateful you get referrals and express that gratitude to people because it's really easy to send a card out. We use a tool called Send Out Cards a lot to send mail out to people. You could easily do that in there. Anytime someone refers you, just send a quick card out, have your assistant do it, and then it's $2 or $3 to send a greeting card can go a long way.
Do you think remembering client birthdays is an important thing to do? And about mailing, I mean, do you think sending actual postcards or actual postal mailings is still something people should be doing?
I mean, if you're working with immigration clients, they're going to be getting mail anyways, so it's a part of their life and they're paying attention to it. We send mail all the time. It's a lot of our sales prospects. We actually send a pack of brownies and a card to them, so I think it definitely makes a difference. It is kind of a unique treat because most people just get bills in the mail, so when they get a card saying thank you, it does make a difference. And it can be an email, it can be a number of things, but I think the mail portion definitely does still work. And then most of the people mailing aren't small local businesses thanking people for referring to them. So it's kind of unique in its own.
Let me just ask about the verbal newsletters. So the verbal newsletters you actually would have people placing outgoing telephone calls to the clients to
Yeah. Let's say there's like
that's not too labor intensive.
It definitely can be labor intensive, but when you start getting clients from it, it's well worth it because one, you're not paying for all those leads and data. And then secondly is there's generally a wave of people that have additional questions or consults that help to come from it. And then the third thing is a lot of when we do a verbal newsletter is when we're doing some type of database outreach. And then the other thing is you don't have to do this personally, is there are a lot of call services like answering services and that will do this on like a per work basis. So it may be a lot of work. But also, if your lawyer called you, or not the lawyer themselves, but if the law office called you to let you know about a piece of news that is potentially interesting to you, that's really appealing because that means that this person is staying on top of current events so that they're paying attention to things that can do it. So yes, it definitely is labor intensive. Most of the firms aren't going to do this, and that's fine if they view it as too much. But the other thing is the amount of credibility that it gives you that you're actually calling your client base to inform them about news that they would otherwise likely not learn about is definitely valuable.
Do you think it's ever appropriate to use any robocalling technology? I mean, have a recording that you then have dialed to?
Yeah, well, definitely. It's you're looking into that. Look up your local laws. We have done that before because it is very easy to record a voice message, and then this is another spot where text marketing can come into place, where you can message them like, "Hey, there's a new law that came out. Want to let you know about it. Read about it here." Kind of that simple thing. And more people want to communicate on various avenues, which should be text, WhatsApp, Messenger, all sorts of things. But the pre-recording can definitely be good. And then as far as robocalling or auto dialing, as long as someone's live on the phone, I don't have an issue with it. There are laws around it, of course. And then fortunately, a lot of large companies are using this in a very non-ethical way. So it's not always leaving the best taste in people's mouths. And a lot of who we hire for the law firms, because we have a remote hiring service, is we hire remote call center agents in Latin America. Then instead of working in a big facility with 500 people, we'll work at home for an immigration lawyer. And so this is oftentimes not uncomfortable for someone to do who has that type of background. So that's kind of the thing. But I don't have an issue with using any of this technology as long as it's used for a specific purpose. And then this can be part of a larger campaign too. Like let's say you send out a big voicemail blast saying, hey, it's this new law came out. And generally about 5-10% of people that receive a voicemail blast will call you back. So if you are going to do that, you got to think if you send 100 out, you get 5-10 calls back very quickly. A lot of people will call back. So a good way to, like we talked about earlier, farm within your existing prospect base. And then the next thing is like when you're actually using this, you can make it part of a larger plan. Like, oh, hey, maybe we're going to send out a case update. Maybe we're going to email broadcast the case update. And then maybe we want to let our list know or advertise online that we're going to do a webinar. That way everybody's a little bit more engaged before we ask them for something. And then after the webinar, we're going to follow up with people that engaged through all this to see, hey, who in here actually needs legal services. So this can be part of a larger plan. And then, if people are happy just getting, a voicemail with some more information, that's fine. But then there are going to be people that engage that actually need help. And then, a lot of people hire lawyers and are not happy with the service. They didn't engage well with them. So it does happen quite a bit that people end up moving lawyers. Not that that's always a good thing, but it's, it does happen. So staying top of mind with these people is definitely important.
Let's talk about client satisfaction, because that's really paramount about the legal services industry. If we took sort of, the wheel of client satisfaction, what would the various spokes be that sort of lead into client satisfaction? I mean, how do you arrive at client satisfaction? What goes into it?
Having clear expectations is a good way to, because the legal cases last so long. I mean, not everyone's going to remember a 10-minute conversation you had with them 2 years ago. So having things written down and then is something, but actually most client satisfaction is going to be based on how well you communicate with them. I mean, if you're in an immigration firm, very rarely is, I would say pretty much never, is a client actually going to know that you're filing a good immigration case for them. It's or providing proper legal representation according to that. They're really kind of trusting you on that side because obviously that's their expertise. But the other thing is they're mainly going to gauge it based on their communication with you and the firm, how well their questions are answered, those kinds of things. And then also expectations change over time. So as far as meeting their expectations goes, it's very important to define clearly like what they should expect from you is the other thing. And then one of the big things is obviously like immigration cases take a long time. And when someone files one immigration case with you, obviously if you own a firm, filing one case, that's not enough to keep the doors open. You're going to have a lot of clients, a lot of new clients, a lot of past ones. It's a lot like, imagine someone's at the hospital and their family member is in one of the hospital rooms and they're asking the nurse or the doctor, how's my uncle doing or whatever. That doctor is thinking about, whatever the 30 other patients he has then, but that person only cares about that one patient, which is their family member. So it's important to not kind of lose your bedside manner on that side, but to realize that that's their perspective. And then the other thing is like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So the more proactively you can reach out to them, and whether or not you say you have time for this or not, it will save you time to proactively reach out to your clients and then say, hey, just so you know, we have and even if it's just an email, a phone call, something, and you can pre-schedule these too. Like, hey, just so you know, we still care. We're in the same boat. The USCIS is at the same stage it was a month ago. Is kind of that. You'll actually prevent a lot of the things coming in. And that's kind of that same thing we brought up earlier, though, is like, oh, my lawyer reaches out to me, or my law firm or whatever it is, whoever does it, and lets me know that, hey, this is how my case is doing. And that's the type of stuff they're going to tell their friends. Because the things they brag about, that people brag about is the customer service. It's how well they communicate. Did they get back to me? Did they answer my questions in a way that I understand? Like when I need something, do they get back to me? Or do they only call me when they want money? So that, like when I call them asking a question, do they actually listen to me, or do I only hear from them when they need to bill me for something and have me fill something out like that? And it's a hard thing to manage. It's never going to be perfect, of course.
Are you involved in helping firms optimize their billing practices? Is that part of it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We do it a lot. A lot of firms.
That aspect of it, and how do you approach, collections and so forth?
So those are two kind of heated questions on there. So obviously collections is one thing. So like one firm we worked with, 9% of their bills weren't getting paid, which when you have, about, 1,800 open cases, that's a lot of people not paying every month. But the big thing with setting up a billing practice is, having some type of online ledger system that works well. And then secondly is having some type of subscription. But so a lot of what we help with on creating billing systems is, first off, you got to set the right expectation with the client, because you don't want them to feel like they're just another one of your bills. And then also some of the cases last for so long, they'll start to kind of ask themselves what they're actually paying for. But a lot of what we help with in billing is if you can turn your law firm into as much of a subscription model as possible. Like, let's say you're filing perm cases, for example. There's a lot of stages to perm. You might bill them every 6 months or a year, or like whenever the stage transitions. Maybe you just want to, factor in, okay, this case is going to take about 3 years to process. Maybe we make this a monthly bill, where we charge them a few $100s a month instead of a few thousand every 6 months or whatever it happens to be. So that way it becomes a bit more clear, because you want to build billing procedures that aren't awkward. And so, because also not everyone that's going to, like, let's say you have a paralegal who's a great paralegal, they're a good person, they're great at focusing, they're a bit more introverted, they're good at sitting there and then, focusing and doing the work. Is that really going to be someone that's going to be good at calling up and saying that, hey, you owe us $3,000, we're going to need to collect this before the next part of the process starts? And then, that kind of goes back to like, that call center agent we referenced earlier. That person would probably have no problem with that, because that's kind of their background. So you want to build these procedures in that aren't quite as awkward. And a lot of that can come down to making subscriptions, creating a billing model that's consistent, and that also provides cash flow for your business, which is really important. One thing that happened a lot during the pandemic is a lot of the courts weren't moving forward. A lot of the cases weren't getting processed, and people couldn't bill their clients because the production stage wasn't even met. And tons of things can happen with there. It doesn't have to be a worldwide pandemic. I mean, it can just happen to be like a case delay, or like, they might have not told you they had a criminal conviction because they didn't want to tell their wife. Then all of a sudden, you can't collect from your client because it's not at a certain production stage that you agreed on. So this big thing is make billing procedures that aren't awkward. We always want to work towards having the clients work on like a subscription style kind of model, because that provides cash flow for the business, and it's not quite as awkward. People get used to that few $100s coming out a month instead of a few thousand every 6 months. A bit easier for them to plan for. And then the third thing is, in regards to actually collecting on all this stuff, bill them on time. Obviously, you got to follow up with them somehow, but as much as you can turn it into subscription models possible is good. But one firm we worked with, they actually had issues in the past where like they would just charge the credit cards automatically, but then some people filed disputes with their bank, and it made it difficult because they were afraid their payment processing would get frozen, which meant that it wasn't just that client that didn't pay, it was every client essentially. The money wasn't able to be transported to the bank. So that's kind of the thing. But overall, have a clear expectation for it. And then the big thing about we see in a billing procedure is just don't become another one of their bills. It's like, let's say you have a U visa filing, and you have to collect a lot of money over the course of a number of years. Reach out, send a letter to them every few months, quarterly, have them on some type of letter service, or just email them. You can have on an email list that you can automate, and then you can do that to where they feel like they're actually paying for something, and that'll help you collect on quite a bit of things. And then also there is a point where if you are actually having a lot of collections issues, there are call centers that do this. You can call it. A lot of the times people hire us because they want someone just to call their current clients and collect on that. Well, one of our clients actually, overdue payments, they bring in about $40,000 from all these like overdue payments that they've kind of given up on, just from having hired somebody to just call and make those calls every single month to do that. And so the collections are kind of there. And then a lot of these roles, there are so many call centers out there that have these types of things. And there are a lot of these call center agents, the people working in those, that are happy to have a remote job where they're working at home, not having to bus it to a call center.
And it's really interesting hearing you talking about how to optimize the billing practices. It's so incredibly important. I mean, we have a little bit of time. I do want to ask one question about artificial intelligence. I mean,
Yeah.
have you started utilizing any of the newer AI powered tools in terms of in your implementing of solutions for firms? And well, that's one question. And then sort of, do you have any thoughts about where you see that going in the future with some of the newer tools that you think could be used in sort of the optimizations that you've been talking about?
Well, the first question is kind of how do we use it? Is one thing is set parameters on how to use it, because obviously you as a lawyer are going to think of things differently than your secretary. And so if you're going to integrate AI into the business, make it clear what you're going to use it for and when and that type of stuff. And those things, and designate which tools. Because obviously AI isn't one thing, it's very broad. So we use a tool called Agent GPT a lot for research. Like we'll go in and research, especially when we're working with the firm. It's he'll go research, what's the a certain district court like and filing asylum applications if we're working with them. Like let's say we're like obviously we have a number of clients here in California, so obviously the courts there are going to be different than the courts in Texas, and so we want to just learn a little bit more about it and kind of the process for things. But then also one thing you can use AI for is helping to train staff quickly, because you can look up very quickly, okay, what's the process for adjustment of status? These AIs can go out, research it. You can go in and then swap out a few things, and then you can just use that to be like, hey, this is the general process for adjustment of status for like a new team member coming on who, like, let's say you hired a paralegal that's worked at a bankruptcy law firm for 5 years. So they're coming into it. They're obviously going to have a bit more of a base as far as skills goes, but they may not have the knowledge to do that. So that's a good way to do it, is to use it for training people and general research. And then also you can research things that maybe you're not as familiar with, is certain things like maybe you haven't filed an E2 visa with, or filed an E2 visa before, that kind of things. You can do just some general research with it. And then you can go out and have information to verify potentially. So that way you're not just going out receptively looking for information. You'd be like, okay, well, I looked up this process. Is there any type of validation that this is real? Is kind of the thing. So using it for training staff is really good. Then the other thing is, this kind of goes back to setting parameters on how to use artificial intelligence, is don't look at it as a replacement. Look at it as like a supplementation, because obviously lawyers are, they're finished product thinkers. I mean, failure is not an option. The final product has to be perfect. Whereas a lot of other areas of the business and the world are a little bit more flexible. And so that's something you can really kind of take a look at, is to kind of think, hey, is this, use it to supplement the work. There are a lot of parts of the business that may not be legal work either. Like maybe you need to post an ad for a legal assistant that can do these 4 things, plug it into ChatGPT or something, and it'll spit back something. So you can use it for the lighter parts of the business that aren't as intensive, that are taking up a lot of your time. And then one of our clients actually used ChatGPT for creating so what they would do is they would just type up a brief description of, hey, write a summary email for this client's consult, and it would type it up. And then they didn't put any of the client information in there. It was just like L1 visa for this type of business from this country, from this, and these are their potential options for filing and the cost. And there you go. In 3 sentences, they could draft kind of a representation paragraph, just not necessarily like an agreement, but like just about like, hey, this is just the process for getting started and everything. Do that. And then essentially they used it more like a writing assistant as opposed to something to actually do it there. So use it for what it's good for, which is a lot of the time supplementing your existing work. But then that's what I would look at it as. Look at it as a tool to supplement your work and not necessarily replace it. And then you're a lawyer, you're a finished product thinker. That is a good thing if you're a lawyer. But also there's a lot of, there are so many different, potential options for using tools, because not everything has to get completely to the finish line to help with you. But maybe you're filing a visa with a specific consulate and you just want to research the consulate or the country or those things. And then one thing that for those of you filing humanitarian cases that need to make country reports for asylum cases, the AI is a really good place to find a lot of the articles and everything that you can use for that you can just validate it. So you can use it to just get you a little bit further into the finish line. And then the tool I really like is Agent GPT. That one's more research based, as then you can type in a specific prompt, but it will actually go and find third-party references for you. It types it out more like a research basis instead of just a block of text.
One of the areas that I think it can be helpful is with, some of the client communications and the advertising copy, the outbound communications from the law firm, in its tone. I mean, sometimes because of the legal training and the sort of legal tone, they don't quite get, at least some, not everybody, of course, but some people don't quite get that not everything has to have, the bar, lawyer tone, court tone. Communications can be more somewhat friendlier than that, the way they would be in other industries, and that can really help in terms of sounding a note which is friendly and attractive to your client base. I mean, obviously, law is serious business; it can't be too breezy, but I think the AI tools can help you create outbound communications which strike the right tone.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then also, I mean, AI isn't just these other third-party tools. I mean, there are tools that'll help you write emails, tools that'll help you have these things. So, and then AI is becoming integrated into a lot of these tools that were a bit more static. There are email template tools that'll actually help you write an email with it and everything. And I think one of the things too is people are wondering how to use AI without having to use a bunch of extra tools. And that's having to download things or set up a bunch of new accounts and all that stuff. So you can look within your current ecosphere, but look at your current tech stack and then check to see which companies are integrating this stuff. I mean, there are some case management platforms that are integrating with ChatGPT. There's Grammarly recently introduced, which is like a writing assistant. They introduced an AI thing to help you write emails. So there you go. I'm sure anybody watching this writes emails on a daily basis. So that's something there. And then that's something you don't even have to leave your Gmail or Outlook interface to even use. I mean, it's just a Chrome extension that attaches to things. So part of it's also just looking inside your current ecosphere, like what tools are already integrating with AI? Like where's all this stuff coming in? And then, because obviously not everyone stays on top of what a software does, people get into these routines.
It is a trend and a development, which is you're going to see more and more of the AI powered techniques and tools coming into, the existing tools. So it's not going to be just going to, a third party and setting up a new account with a new tool. It's going to be, AI powered functionality in some of maybe your existing tools or tools that you use for a broader application. Absolutely. Well, Ian, we're getting to the end of the hour. This is a great conversation, and it has been, really enlightening for us to understand your methodology, what you do at Immigration Finder. It sounds like a fantastic value proposition for immigration lawyers to optimize their processes. I can see it paying, enormous dividends. I mean, do you want to tell our audience anything else before we close the session?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is like if you're wanting to automate or systematize, or just the general question is like, how do I do this better? Start with something specific that you do daily, and don't be afraid to try new things at all. But also one of the big things is start by just asking your staff what's difficult. That's a good place to start. And then overall, you can start small and very specific, but nothing's ever going to be perfect. But you even just writing out how to onboard a new client on one page in 5 minutes on a Google document, that's a great thing to do. But the big thing to focus on is you want to remove as many of the variables inside the business that you can control. You can't always control that USCIS is going to send you an RFE, that your client's going to get a DUI, that the embassy is just not going to respond to anything you send them. What you can control are things inside the business. So that's a good thing to focus on. If you want to reduce the amount of stress you have, or how tense your team is, or there's a whole myriad of things you might want to work on, start by just with the things you can control. But the thing is, like, when you trip over a rock and hit your head on a rock, the rock you tripped over is the problem. And so always try to, when you have a problem, like, look a step back to think, okay, well, we have these customer service issues. All right, well, did we onboard them very well? It's like, no, we sent them the checklist 6 weeks after they started. We collected their payment and then didn't talk to them for a week. Like, that type of stuff might actually be the issue, as opposed to, oh, the client's mad, we're not getting back to them the same day. That might be the complaint, but the actual initial thing might be, oh, well, it took 6 weeks for us to even contact this client after they paid us. So that's kind of it. But no, it's been great being on here, James. It's we're really grateful you had me. And for anyone looking to use DocWise, it's a great system. We set it up a lot. It's come a lot over the last few years. And then it's also useful for just filing the forms and doing that. Then it is also useful as a full case management platform too. We've been seeing great results with it inside firms.
Absolutely, we are more than thrilled that you are frequently setting it up for your clients. And so, Ian, again, great having you. And please, audience, join us next time for our next episode of Immigration Uncovered. Stay well.
Thanks again.